welcome everybody. Really looking forward to the next 50 minutes here. So my name is Felix Rottmann, Senior Manager at NovaSpace. And in the next 50 minutes, we're going to explore a very interesting topic, and that is the in-space economy. Into the questions, I would like to ask each of you to give a short, very brief introduction of who you are and what your company does.
Hi, good morning. I joined Neo Space Group, which I'll go into a bit of detail in a second, in around February this year. And before that, I spent 25 years at Inmarsat and Viasat, so the traditional space world, let's say. So Neo Space Group was founded, well, only about 15 months ago. So we're a startup, but we're founded by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia, the PIF, to be the national space champion of Saudi Arabia. And we're looking across the whole ecosystem from Earth observation through SATCOM, through PNT, but also looking to set up a venture capital fund as well. And that's why I'm super excited to be on this panel, because it's exactly this type of capabilities in orbit manufacturing, in orbit refueling, last mile delivery, space stations, exactly the sort of area that Saudi Arabia may be looking to invest in the future on.
Mark, when I look at NSG, the current deals or businesses that you're in look, let's say, a bit more traditional than what we heard from the other two panelists here. Like, you're active in SATCOM, in PNT and EO. But what is your view on this, let's say, futuristic market of the in-space economy as a, for now, more, let's say, traditional actor in the space ecosystem?
Well, I think the in-space economy gets interesting when the traditional sectors can be disrupted by it or can be enabled by it. And so I've spent many years looking at things like in-orbit servicing, in-orbit refueling, last-mile delivery. All these capabilities have been talked about for quite some time. They're coming to market now, and I can see the benefit they provide at a system level. I'm less concerned about individual bits of technology, more about what it can do for the system in terms of economics, longevity, and from an NSG perspective, we want to see, we have assets in space at the moment. We may want to life extend them. We may want new assets to go up into orbit more quickly. We may want to be more reactive. So we know we live in a geopolitically very unstable time. Being able to act more rapidly, make decisions more rapidly, deploy capability more rapidly is a very interesting capability. So so we have an Earth observation business. We have a SATCOM business. But they all can be enabled by other types of services. I spent many years designing or writing contracts to buy spacecraft from large primes. They're super complex things. Can you simplify them, reduce cost, reduce risk by moving some of the capability you put in spacecraft somewhere else? It's that sort of system level thing which interests me about how we can provide more resilient systems and more reactive systems in the future. And the in-orbit economy, the in-orbit manufacturing, all those services have the potential to do that. But we've talked about them for a long time. I think I had my first in-orbit servicing discussion probably about 2008, 2009. Obviously, we've seen Northrop Grumman do this with Intelsat satellites now very successfully, but it's still a capability that's developing in a number of companies. And we're super excited to see those companies and the ingenuity and investment and the innovation happening. And we want to support, because these companies will provide services to us in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Mark, looking at you and your view as an investor, if I look at your past deals, you're doing stuff in space economy, geospatial, marketplace, all of those deals where, say, the impact was visible already almost in the next quarter. But if we now look at the in-space economy, revenues are years, if not decades, out in the future. How do you think about investing in this futuristic sector?
Yeah, if you look at the reason NSG was set up, it was to essentially be part of something called Vision 2030, which is Saudi Arabia's plan to move away from an oil and gas economy to a high-tech, high-skilled economy. That takes time, and the investments that we're making in the future are very much along that reasoning about how we can bring those capabilities over. We know it's not going to be quick. This is going to take time. We've got a very active young population within Saudi Arabia who are highly educated, who want to be able to do jobs in space. But it takes time. It's about making strategic investments to be able to bring capability in, working with international partners, working with partners within inside the kingdom to act on that plan. But what I've sensed in 9 months of being there is the enthusiasm, the energy to make this thing work. But people know, some people have expectations things are going to happen next week, next year. But in reality, this takes time. As coming back to things around, aspects around where governments can play a role, I see capability being developed in a certain area, certain technology, certain capability. But if you ever try to dock something onto a satellite that was never designed for it, it's really hard. Can governments play a role in facilitating cross-ecosystem standardization, interoperability? Because I think if there's a model there where the operators, where the people who had these assets knew with a high degree of confidence something's going to work, is repeatable, that they weren't reliant upon a single vendor if something happened 10 years down the line. And I think governments and free standardization play an important role in setting that sort of ecosystem where people making large investments can have trust that there's going to be a service in the future. And so I think governments like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and ESA in terms of, and NASA, play a role in trying to facilitate that. I see a few too many seed investments because people like cool technology, but that's so different from making a product and service which actually delivers revenues for many years in the future. So taking a bit more of a strategic view across the whole ecosystem, which governments play an important role in, is important. But yeah, this is a long-term game. This is not, I think it was 15 years ago from the first in-orbit servicing conversation. That's a long time. Space can take a long time, but it shouldn't take that long. Yeah, so there's definitely a 5-10 year ambition within the kingdom to be able to really transform the economy and bring in those skills and those capabilities. And it's an exciting thing to be part of that journey.
Certainly an exciting time for everybody here. So thank you for the view of the, let's say, from the government or from the investor lens here.
I'm Thierry Brandbonner. I'm in charge of the research institute which is dealing with the adaptation to the consequences of the climate change. And I would like to know to which extent, let's say, the carbon and energy content of either the solutions you develop or the offer you put on the market are considered by you, by your investors, but also maybe by the young talents you try to attract in your companies, because at least in other sectors of activities, this is very much looked at by them.
Maybe just comment on the people side. I think that's a really interesting point, because my experience is the younger generation coming in the last couple of years, this is a given. You don't even almost have to discuss it. It's like we need to be sustainable. And what I see a lot of enthusiasm in terms of designing systems which can really enable significant changes in carbon emission, for example, looking how we can start thinking about one rather than just one technology, fusing Earth observation with communication, with IoT, to be able to create services and products which actually really make meaningful changes to how energy is used. And I think that has the space sustainability point is so important. Space is a great enabler for helping the global climate change, but it has the potential to create a big mess there. And we've got 10,000 or 9,500 active satellites at the moment. You see how many go up almost every week these days. The Chinese have their own constellations, 15,000 satellites probably by 2030, 2031 or so. But there's no coordination between the US ones, because they're predominantly US at the moment, and the Chinese ones. We need to find a mechanism to be able to operate at a geopolitical level, because this is a common goal, it's a global commons. If we create a pollution problem, then we're all going to regret it for many, many, many years. So yeah, space has a great ability to help with climate change and energy consumption. But if we don't do it right, we could create as big a problem in space as we have terrestrially.
One question before we close it off. So this question goes to all of you. Like, what are you most excited about, and what are you most worried about when looking into the future of the in-space economy?
Okay, I guess I'm excited about a whole range of products and services that really can change life on Earth and how we actually function. Coming from sort of heterogeneous systems rather than just one bit of technology in isolation, we can really look at these as far more collaborative systems. My big fear is that we walk into a Kessler syndrome and we deny ourselves access to space, which we won't be sitting here when that happens, because we'll have no jobs.
Thank you so much for the very positive outlook, all of you. So it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. So Thank you.